right, we're continuing our conversation with Nancy Laabs, and she has her glasses on 'cause she's professional now on this part. She's already written the book. We've already talked about her vision board. We've already heard her story. Now she can tell you specifically what her profitable landlord system is, what it looks like, what it's all about. So what is it, Nancy?
Okay, thanks a lot. And you know what? I put my glasses on because I can't see. So that's,
I was going to say that.
Okay, so the profitable landlord system, I'm so excited. So what the profitable landlord system is a step-by-step, repeatable, simple, and predictable system to help you buy, find, or let's back up, find, buy, and manage single-family rentals. Now, it's not about commercial real estate. It's not about multifamily. It's strictly single-family homes. That's how we built our rental portfolio and where we are today through single-family. So I really wanted to focus on that. And so what I do in the profitable landlord system, now there's, you know, I'm not the be-all, end-all on single-family homes, but I do think I would challenge you to find any system out there that puts in what I call the profitable risk indicators. So when I am looking for a single family home, there's a certain model, there's a certain criteria that property has to meet. Now, the good thing is I am not flipping, I'm not looking for flip houses. My marketing is a little bit different, okay? You always have deal flow. No matter what kind of real estate investor you are, you've got to have deal flow. But when I'm talking to you about looking for single family homes, number one, I've bought plenty of properties off of the MLS. Because why? You can pay more for you don't have to always follow the 70% of ARV rule if you're doing a single family home, right? If you're going to do a rental. Number two, when you buy a rental, your investment, okay, what you're looking for there is really equity at the buy. So you still want to buy it right. So I have what I came up with, the 10 profitable risk indicators, and we take our students step by step. Here's the number one thing that you need to look at. So for me, and remember, they're guides, because when you start looking at properties, you could literally look at 3 different properties and evaluate them using our profitable risk indicators. And I'm going to show everybody how we did this. We made it so simple. I color coded it for you. So I know you can't read everything, but when you see green, that means that that's a good property. You should buy it. If it's yellow, it means that it has some risk, but over time, you can overcome that risk. And if it's red, you need to run. You do not need to buy that property. Because remember when I said that I had a mentor, and so I did make mistakes, but over time, those mistakes didn't cost me a lot of money because I bought them right. And so I'm going to give you an example of a property I bought here in Dallas. So, and I buy properties for multiple reasons. So this is one that just recently I had to analyze it. So about 5 years ago, my daughter was going to college here, and we were going to have to pay rent at UTD, and I was looking at the rents, and they were like $1,200, $1,300. And I was like, you know, and most college students, they can't afford that. You know, we were having to pay for tuition and all that. So we decided that we would look for a condo. Now that's not my single family. That's not my, you know, 322 property that I normally look at, but we needed to find something for her that she could manage, right? She's not going to be able to manage a house. And we didn't really want to deal with roommates. So I looked at over 40 condominiums, 40, count them, 40. And before we actually bought one. But what happened was when I went through looking at those 40, I used these same 10 profitable risk indicators that I'm talking about. So we finally found a property that met all of the criteria I was looking for. And number one, what came to the top was I was looking for an appreciating area, because she was only going to live in it for a short amount of time. And I wanted to keep it as a rental, right? So I was looking for a specific property that I could add to, so it would meet 2 purposes. One, my daughter could rent it for a year, but I also, when she moved out, it would fit into my rental portfolio. So fast forward 5 years now, she lived in it for a year. I rented it to some tenants that paid like $1,300. I think they were up to like $1,400 by the time they moved out. So they just moved out recently. So I had to kind of reevaluate what I'm going to do with the property, you know, working with my property manager. And so, but what I found was that my property has increased to over $50,000 in equity. So when I first bought it, I only had about $10,000, $15,000 in equity. And I wanted to tell you about the purchase price, because the purchase price was close to retail. I did find it on the MLS. I'm a realtor, so I can, I have that. I use my commission to buy it. So I think my out-of-pocket cost was like $90,000 for the actual property. So today that property, if I wanted to sell on the MLS, would be about $155,000. So it's actually a little more, 50. So that met one of my profit risk indicators. I knew it was in an appreciating area. Now, how did I know that? Well, one of the things that we teach you is where to find information about appreciating areas. I mean, flippers sometimes do that, or sometimes there's clues when you go through a neighborhood if you're familiar with driving for dollars, but you really need to work with somebody that understands market trends, and that's what we go through. So we go through days on market, and one of my students the other day said, well, what if you had, a days on market property that was only 26 days on market, but you could get it at 60% of ARV. Does that sound like a deal? Well, yeah, that sounds like a deal. But I would also say, what's your exit strategy? If it's a rental, is it an area that already has a lot of rentals? Because we talk about that. That's one of the risk factors, that you don't really want to buy a property that every house on the block is a rental, unless you're near a university, or maybe it's a Air Force base or something that makes sense. In my own backyard, there's a subdivision. I'm not going to name it in case anybody lives there. That every house, when the builder built the subdivision, it's a very 3-2 Fox and Jacobs neighborhood. The builder was let investors come in there, and a lot of investors from California came in and bought 20, 30 properties at a time, right? And during my property management days, we managed a lot of those homes in that subdivision, and it's single family homes, not apartments. So there was an HOA, but the HOA could not keep up with all the yard requests. Like the builder didn't put in sprinkler systems. Most tenants will not water a yard. They just won't, because they're paying for so you have to pay for yard service. Most tenants won't take the weeds out of a flower bed. So what happened in that particular neighborhood is the builder had built, they put in the trees, and then the subdivision was requiring trees to be replaced, and they were dying because why? The tenants weren't watering them. But if you just drive through that subdivision, it looks not kept. And mostly that's due to the HOA is not strict enough, can't keep up with it, and it's all tenants. And I'm not saying that tenants generally will not take care of a property, but if your neighbor here is not watering, this person's not going to water. And so, we're in Texas, we get dead trees and dead bushes. So what would have happened if the builder had just said, you know what, we're not going to put in trees, we're not going to put in flower beds, that would have made a whole lot better sense if they were going to let investors buy in there. So just that's my tip for today. So just make sure you're buying in a neighborhood. Now, if that same neighborhood was being kept up and you could get really good rents, it might make sense. But the other thing that happens is it's saturated with tenants. And so when there's vacancies, then you can't get the best rent there. You've got to be competitive, and usually that means being lower just to make sure your property's not sitting vacant. So that's just one area that we go into. Our program is actually 4 months long, and at the end of the 4 months, if you've done everything that we've taught you to do, you're going to have your first rental property, right? We're going to not only show you how to get your deal flow going, we're going to work with you on the specific marketing that we're going to give you marketing. I actually give you what I use on my marketing. We don't hold anything back. I guess that's the biggest thing, because I want people to be successful. I want people to have their single family. And then once you find the property, we're going to help you analyze it. And a lot of times especially new investors, they have no idea about repair costs. So that's one of the big things that we delve into. What are the average repair costs for foundation, AC, roof? The other thing that I'll go over is my seller scripts. Like you do your marketing, your phone is ringing, now you have the person on the phone. Crickets, because you don't know what to say. You don't know what questions to ask that seller. And we'll go over and teach you what questions to ask the seller so that you don't even have, I bought properties over the phone without even seeing them. Now I get them under contract, but I will ask questions and know if that's a deal before I even go see the property. And we teach our students the very same thing, because you know what? You can waste a lot of time driving around and looking at properties. I know investors that they'll go to every single house every single time, and they get very few deals. Because why? If you live in a big metropolitan city, or if you market to outside the city, like I do, I have secondary markets that I go to. I don't have the time to drive an hour one way to go see one property. So I need to kind of make sure I'm working with my time management to make sure that I'm working my deals that are deals and that kind of thing. So we take you through seller scripts, what to say, how to kind of analyze repairs before you even go see that house, right? We show you all kinds of tips and tricks, tools that we use to analyze properties. Then we go into, like I said, the appreciating areas, and then we'll go into, once you find it, how do you fund it? So you find it, now you know how you pay for it. And so first of all, let me clarify this. No one that buys real estate, especially rental properties, you can't do it with zero money. That's just, don't even believe it. Because you know what? Even if you were able to get 100% financing, you might have to change the locks. You might have to make a repair. You might have to put a peephole in the garage door, which a lot of people don't even know about. You have to have some money. So, now do you have to have a ton of money? No. When we got started, I was fortunate. I had 20% down. Okay, I had 20% down, but then after a while I ran out of money. So I still had to get money. And we kind of show you how to build your rental portfolio. I did it one house at a time. I did it. I bought one, saved up my money. Bought one, saved up my money. In single family homes, this is not get rich overnight. Building wealth takes time, but it's almost a guarantee, if I can use that word, if you do it in a certain way. And that is what the way is our step-by-step system. You can't just go, and I'm working with someone who they bought a property, and I said, so there might be people say, well, I already know how to be a profitable, because remember we said profitable, right? You can be a landlord, but are you being profitable? So I challenged them. I said, why don't you just take your rental property and analyze it using my 10 criteria and see where they're at. So just if the number is between 36 and 50, that means you shouldn't buy. It's too high of a risk. You're not going to recoup your money. So his property was like a 42. So, but he already owned it and also had a tenant in it. So wouldn't it have been nice if he had some risk indicators ahead of time to let him know, well, maybe you shouldn't buy that property, right? So even if you've been a landlord, there might be some things that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. The next thing, I'm going to get to funding in a minute, but I want to talk about tenant placement, because you know what? You can have the best deal, the best location, the best property, but if you make a mistake putting the wrong person in your rental property, your profits could be gone, not just for months, for years. And depending on what state you're in, because the cool thing about the profitable landlord system is we wrote it so that you could use it in any market. Any of these risk indicators you will find in every single market out there. So in different states, there's different laws, and so we'll get you the help you need for that if you're outside. But Texas we love because the judges here are, for the most part, landlord friendly. But if you get a tenant in there, and in my property management days, I would literally talk to landlords, and I still do to this day. I'll talk to new landlords, and they get nervous because they've got a vacancy, and they're like kind of freaking out because they have holding costs, and so they literally put the first person in there that shows up. Now maybe they didn't price it right, because one of the profitable risk indicators we talk about is the rent in the area, because people get confused. Like I'll say, you know what, let's look at days on market, because the longer a property sits on the market, the more motivated the potential seller is, or they just price their house wrong, right? So either way, if it's on the market for 180 days or longer, they're a motivated seller. They just might be a little stuck on their price, so you got to help them get down. Now, when you have a rental, what you want to look at is how long does it take in a particular area you're looking at, how long does it take to get that rental rented? If it takes 56 days, that's too long. And you need to look at why it's taking that long in that neighborhood for houses to rent. So it's two different risk criteria that you need to look at. So you can get a really good deal But if you can't rent it, that's your goal, is to make it a rental, then you might not want to buy it. You might want to look in a different area. So those are just some things that we look at. So on the tenants, what we're going to do is I actually have 4 questions that I ask tenants before, well, they're not tenants yet, they're applicants, potential tenants. So there's 4 questions, 4 simple, easy questions that if anybody emails me at nancy@kvnhomes.com, I will send you those 4 questions. So these 4 questions, basically, I ask every single applicant before they fill out an application, before they see a property, because that's a time saver. Because if you're doing self-management, and I recommend you try to keep your rental properties within 30 to 40 minutes one way from your house, because that's a half an hour out to show it, half an hour back, half an hour. And I know investors that they're doing it themselves, which is fine. I self-managed for a long time. I can teach you how to do that. I do have a property manager now, but at some point, you know, most landlords do get a property manager. But, you know, when you're first starting out, you're like, okay, I'm going to go show my property. And so you'll make 9 trips over there to show maybe people that don't show up, they're not qualified to rent your house, you know, multiple reasons. So I'm going to give you the 4 questions to ask people before you even get in your car and drive there. So nancy@kvnhomes.com, say 4 questions, and I'll send those to you. And then the funding part of it. So when you're first starting out, most of the time you can get conventional. If it's your very first or second deal, you probably can get conventional lending. I myself do not qualify anymore, and because I've been self-employed for so long, I don't qualify for conventional funding. So I have to find other sources. So of course there's hard money, but my favorite source of money is private money, because that is relationship based. So we talk about not so much risk indicators for your lenders, but we're going to put those risk indicators on you. So we are going to work with you to make you not risky to a lender. So we're going to teach you how to attract lenders to you, because that's how you can continue to grow, and that's how we've been able to grow. It's not because we were able to go out and do conventional lending. You know, we have been able to find resources for funding and growing our real estate business. And one of the things, following the Profitable Landlord workbook, I'm actually coming out with the Profitable Landlord book, Your Journey to Financial Freedom. And one of my chapters is on questions. I have been known all my life for asking too many questions. I annoy my family, my friends, or whatever. But you know what? When it comes to real estate investing, let me just tell you, you cannot ask too many questions. And when it comes to lenders, that is where you need to ask the most questions, because not all lenders are real estate investor friendly. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. So I have spent a lot of time, because I have great deal flow, but I need money. That's what I need. So when I meet lenders, the first thing I was like, I'm a real estate investor. Oh yeah, we do those all day long. So there was a loan person, a lender, that stood up in front of a real estate meeting and said that he had this, they call them products, for real estate investors. You know, just all you have to do is contact him. And so I did. I explained exactly what I'm doing. It's like, oh yeah. So I went through the process, had my credit pulled, went through the whole process. 2 weeks later, he tells me, well, what they were trying to do is put me in a conventional loan. You know, they were going to do hard money first and then turn it into conventional. And I'm like, I'll never qualify for that. And I was really put out, because number one, every time you have your credit pulled, it, you know, it can ding your credit. I mean, I know the lenders always say, oh, if you do it within a certain amount of time for the same reason. You know what? I don't know about that. When you're in real estate, I mean, it's normal for your credit to go up and down, because if you're rehabbing a house, you know, you might have your Home Depot card charged way up. You haven't paid it down yet, you know, so it's fluid is what I like to call it. You know, I've been guilty. You know, I get really, really busy and I forgot to pay the TXU bill or something over at one of my rehab properties. So, you know, that can, if it goes to collections, it can, you know, ding your credit. So you just want to be careful about who's pulling your credit and why they're pulling your credit. And you need to really ask some serious questions. And lenders like to, you know, they make money off of the origination fee. So of course they want your business. Of course, if you're trying to get a $150,000 loan and they're charging 2 points, they're gonna make $3,000. And that's just kind of how it is in real estate. Everybody's making money, that kind of thing. But which is fine. I'm all about people making money, but I only want you to pull my credit because you're going to be able to give me the product that I need to buy my house and grow my business. So we go over that. We have another module just on property management. So there's self-managing, and then there's property management. And this is all about how to hire the right property manager. So remember, I said that I was a property manager for many years, and I was remiss in getting my property manager soon or later than sooner. And the reason being is that I was one of the few real estate brokers in Texas that was certified by the Texas Real Estate Commission to teach other brokers about how to be a property manager. So every time I went to go get a property manager, I'd ask them my 10 profitable risk indicators for a profitable manager, and they wouldn't meet mustard. And so I didn't hire them. So I have finally hired them because I just couldn't manage them anymore because I'm doing so many other things. And I was becoming an unprofitable landlord on one of my properties because I really did need a property manager. So even myself, and so that's another whole module that we have. And then the last module we have, it has to do with growing your team. We give you the KPIs. We help you develop job aids. We help you decide what positions you need to hire for and how are you going to implement that. Because as entrepreneurs, most of us are control freaks, myself included, and it's really hard for us to let go. And we work with you about how to let go. How do you grow your team? And how do you continue to be profitable while having a team? So all of that is in the Profitable Landlord system. And you can find out about the Profitable Landlord system a couple ways. Number one, you can email Nancy at kbnhomes.com. You can go directly to our website, which is profitablelandlordsystem.com, and take our assessment. We actually have a landlord assessment out there. And then based on your answers, we will review to see if this is going to be a good fit for you. Because I just want to caution you, if you're looking for multifamily, if you're looking for commercial, this is not the program for you. Now, our program is normally $8,500, but I'm offering a special for Lyle show of $4,500 for modules 1, 2, and 3. Module 1 is all about your deal flow and how to analyze properties, okay? Number 2 module is all about your profitable tenants, how to find the right tenant, and we have 10 profitable risk indicators, including not just credit and background, but how to really find out about their rental history. And I want to say a little something about that because we're taping this under COVID times. One of my criteria for tenants has always been if they're in their background check, if they have had an eviction, that we automatically didn't rent to them. Well, okay, now we have COVID. And so now as a responsible landlord, I really need to look at when someone comes to apply, because this is going to happen to you. Someone comes to apply for one of my properties. Through no fault of their own, they went through the eviction during COVID. Okay, and there's ways to prove that. There's ways to get the documentation you need. And now they're back on their feet and they need a second chance, right? So how do you protect yourself as a landlord? How do you make sure that they really were COVID-related evictions, right? So I'm going to just share a story I saw in the news a couple weeks ago. A lady, they were just talking about the moratorium being lifted, and so she was very upset. She was going to go through the eviction. She had not paid her rent for 9 months. Okay, today is August. COVID happened, what, in March? I think so she had not been paying her rent prior to COVID. Okay, her landlord was remiss. Her landlord was not being profitable. She had a bad landlord, basically, because he or she did not, or property management company did not take the proper steps to get her in the eviction process before all that happened. So she should have been evicted beforehand. So that's not the folks I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who worked hard. They had a job. Their job got, again, through no fault of their own. So it's responsible landlords. So we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you how to work with animals, service or not. And I'm going to give you some of my, I'm going to just throw this out as a little tip. So one of my tips for landlords is when you're renting to someone that has bad credit, that's okay. Don't look at that number. Look at what is on their credit. So if they have medical things in their collections, you know what, that can happen to anybody. If you've ever gone to the hospital or whatever, you get umpteen different medical bills and some get sent to you and they go to collections. We never count that against people. We never do. So if they have a 580 credit score because they've paid everything else, but they've got 10 things in collections, we don't even count that. And really what I'm looking for here is the ability to pay. Do they have steady income and do they have steady rentals? So those are just a couple of risk indicators that we look at. One of the other ones that we delve into is communication before you even rent to them. So I'm not going to talk about any of those tips because you have to take the course to find out about that. Yep. And then the third module that we go into is the funders. How to set yourself up so you're not a risk to a lender. And those are just some, and there's so much more that we don't even have time. We'd be here for like 4 months, Lyle. But yeah, so the price today for those three is $4,500. They can let me know that they're interested. I'd be happy to have a Zoom call with anybody to see if they are, if it's a fit. So what I ask for in return is one, commitment, because it is work. You know what I mean? You're not going to get rich, you know, paying $4,500. You have to put the time and energy. I will show you the roadmap. I will give you the tools that you need, but you have to do the work, right? I will help you analyze the properties, but I need your commitment. So that's what I can offer. And remember, when you spend the $4,500, $450 automatically goes to Map of Hope. So that should make you feel good that you are actually providing, just by helping yourself learn how to be a better landlord, how to start investing in real estate, single family homes. Not only are you getting the education, my network, but you're also helping another person out there.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing about that. I'm excited to hear you developing into all these interesting niches and everything, and you're just very specific. If it's multifamily, that's not going to work for you. If it's commercial, it's not going to work for you. This is single family only, and this is for learning how to buy a house and rent that house out, not buy it, not a fix and flip either. So it's a totally different course. I want to make sure everybody understands that before they contact you.
Yeah, and I do want to say one more thing. So during the course of your deal flow, if you find a house that maybe needs a wholesale, or you find a house that maybe would make a good flip, that doesn't mean we're going to say, okay, we're not going to do that. We will help you monetize the leads. So we don't just go, so we'll tell you how to kind of market. Now, we can't control who's going to call you, right? It could be a deal, could not, could be a different kind of deal. So what we will do is we won't focus on it, but if a flip comes in or a wholesale, we have resources that we can help you monetize that lead. So we do that. And then for a short period of time, if they sign up, like I think we're only going through like September 1st for this, we actually have leads that I've already paid for that I use. I get them fresh every week that I actually give to my students. They will be working those leads, and each student will get their own little batch of leads, which, you know what, you would spend over $4,500 just buying the list that I get. So, you know, that way we're going to give the leads to you because we want them to be successful, right? So we give you leads that, these are leads that the last lead that I got off of it, I made $10,000. It didn't end up being a whole, because not all properties are rentals. So I ended up wholesaling it. I made $10,000. So that's just an example. So it's about the education. It's about the network. It's about doing so much more, but the single focus is on single family and building a rental portfolio. But along the way, other real estate investing happens. So
cool. Thanks again for sharing. Thanks for being with us today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Lyle. Appreciate being on.